Sparta Board of Education regular meeting is called to order at 6:07 p.m. Meeting notice. Ms. Grano, do you mind reading that, please?
Sure. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be advertised by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Sparta Board of Education office, 18 Mohawk Avenue, as designated by the Board of Education for posting of such notice in a public place. Written notice was emailed on January 11th, 2022 to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, tapintosparta.net, and the Township clerk, specifying the date, time, and place of this meeting.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mr.
Ms.
Smith.
Brigg? Ms. Collier?
Here.
Ms. Grano?
Here.
Mr. Morris? Ms. Sealander? Dr. Serrano?
Here.
Ms. Sorensen?
Here.
Mr. Flesh?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Everybody please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next we're going to convene into closed session today. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, provides for the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Sparta Township Board of Education is of the opinion that such circumstances exist to discuss. In this case, we'll be discussing legal matters and
Do you want me to read? Personnel, student matters, attorney-client privilege, and board candidate interviews.
Thank you. Which is exempt from the public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sparta Township Board of Education shall enter executive session on January 20th, 2022 at 6:09 p.m. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the session. The information discussed during the executive session will be disclosed to the public as soon as it is determined by the board that the information is no longer confidential. We expect to be in closed session for probably an hour, or around an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes, so just a little bit over an hour. Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Brigg? Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Morris? Ms. Sealander? Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Flesh?
Sorry, just one correction. We are going to reopen the public portion of the meeting at 7:30. We're good. Yep. we're going to call the meeting back to order and resume open session. Result. Mr. Smith, can you do a roll call, please?
Ms. Bragg,
Here.
Ms. Collier,
Here.
Ms. Grano,
Here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Ms. Sealander, Dr. Serrano,
Here.
Ms. Sorensen,
Here.
Mr. Flesch.
Here. Resolved that the Board of Education closes executive session and enters back into the public portion of the meeting at 7:56 p.m. We appreciate everybody's patience and thank you all for your attendance, both here physically and virtually. We do appreciate everybody's participation. Moving on to Section 5, presentations. We have a few presentations tonight. And I believe we're going to start with the energy savings plan that Mr. Smith will be presenting tonight.
Good evening. I'd like to make a short presentation and give you the high points of our ESIP program. ESIP stands for Energy Improvement Savings Program. And what it does is it examines all the energies that we use in our district between oil, natural gas, electricity, etc. So it starts out that company comes in and they look at our long-range facility plan the board has for the next 15 years, how many maintenance projects they want to do each year spread out over the 15 years to see if there's any projects that we were going to do anyway. Then they go in, and the company was Honeywell, and Honeywell did an energy audit with our facilities people and came back with a list of projects that they thought we could do that would save the district energy. At the same time, we added some stuff to the list, and the kinds of things we looked at in general were solar panels on the roof of this building, which would produce half of the electricity used by this building in a year for nothing, no cost to the Board of Ed. Converting some boilers here and in other schools from oil to natural gas, which cuts the price in half, the operating cost in half, and using those energy-saving bulbs in the buildings. And so they took the value of all the projects to get that done, and it came out to about $7.7 million, but we're using a round number not to exceed $8 million. So this is what they say. If we do all these projects, we would save over the next 15 years, we'd save not to exceed $8 million, which means that if we're going to borrow money to pay for those projects, and then out of the energy savings on our existing lines at no additional cost to the taxpayers, we'll just have to keep the energy lines flat. Of course, we'll be spending less, and we'll transfer the extra money we have to the line to pay for the payment, for the lease payment. So in a way, it does not increase your budget to do this. So Honeywell did this audit. Then the Board of Education, sometime last summer, July, August, we hired an independent engineering firm to come in and take the plan that Honeywell came up with and go through it and engineer it to be sure that the numbers were good. They come up and confirmed the numbers were accurate. Then as a third energy audit, we sent it to the state of New Jersey, the Bureau of Public Utilities, and they reviewed the other two energy audits we did, and they confirmed, yes, if you do these things, you will save that amount of money. So in a way, again, we're going to get through without costing any additional money to the taxpayers. And so that's what this program's about. So going forward in the school budget, the energy lines will remain flat over the next 15 years. And sometime during the course of the year, the board will transfer money from, let's say, the electricity account down to the line to make the payment for the loan. So again, it will not increase the budget. And I think I pretty much covered it. Got anything?
Sure.
You want to go, tell the actual projects that you're kind of.
Sure.
Chris Tappan, our facilities manager.
How is everybody? The highlight of the major projects is swapping over, converting the high school and the middle school over to LED, which also reduces our maintenance costs dramatically. And also the big thing is changing our boilers to natural gas. Currently we have five overall buildings, one runs on natural gas now. Converting the other 4 will dramatically change our energy usage. Over at Mohawk Avenue School, we want to change all 14 classroom univentilators. This will also dramatically change and also change the airflow in the classrooms too, so it's kind of a twofold thing. There are a couple different things. They do a little building envelope, which is they check out roof insulation, drafts around windows. They do check out a couple different things, but that's pretty much the major highlights of the ESIP project.
I guess that concludes the presentation, just if there's any questions from the board.
Chris, do you have a timeline regarding some of those projects?
We'll start in the summer. Most of this stuff is we can't do this. We'll start in the summer. Maybe we'll get started now.
So the question was, when will the projects begin? And Ron's answer was they would start over the summer. Obviously, a lot of these projects could not take place during the school year while children and staff are present.
Next, our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Rossi, will be giving a presentation on our Start Strong program.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of our Start Strong scores that have been formally received at the district level. I'll talk to you a little bit about what they are, how they were built, and what that means for our school district. So the first thing in looking at the Start Strong assessment is that it was something that was built to look at our standards and the skills that we're implementing. It was something to be looked at as a complement to our internal benchmark data. And it was used to qualify and satisfy the requirement for the 2021 statewide assessment. So actually, this assessment, even though it was administered in 2022, let's take a current 4th grade student. That student was actually assessed on priority standards from 3rd grade. So it was kind of giving us feedback to determine where there could be weaknesses in last year's standards so that we could do the work we need to make sure students are ready for this year's content and learning. One thing that the Start Strong assessments do not do is they don't replace our internal standards or our internal assessments that give us a lot of data on student performance, and it also does not replace the 2022 statewide assessment. So the NJSLA will be administered in the spring. The Start Strong test was, as I said earlier, built to look at a subset of last year's priority standards. The goal was that the data would be released very early so that we could actually take action with that feedback that we were able to attain. And the indicators that they presented to us, so when we got that data back, and you probably all know this because you may have received this, or you should have received this in the mail for your own students, is that It looks at the levels of support that are needed for students in specific academic areas. So there's 3 indicators. There's less support, some support, and strong support, which interestingly enough is something that we have to make sense of because usually data that we look at shows levels of proficiency. So we can assume that, especially based on the circumstances, our students do need support in lots of different areas, but we also have a lot of strengths, and our students have done an incredible job performing and sustaining learning throughout some pretty tumultuous years. As we interpret these results, things that we should not do is that these results aren't really able to be compared with many things. So when we look at our typical data, it's really comparing apples to oranges, whether it's our internal data or our state data. And again, that looks at proficiency levels, where we're looking at levels of support. So really this information, when put in the hands of the teachers, helps us kind of make curricular determinations. It helps us look at differentiated practices and levels of support that individualized students may need in the classroom. And so that's the recommendation in terms of how we use that information. There's really not a lot of state data out there, and so we were able to find in working with cohorts. So I collaborate frequently with other assistant superintendents, directors of curriculum, not only in the county, but at the state level, so at Morris County and Union County and Essex County. And so that's been hard for us because we want to compare data. So we have looked at state data. That's, again, not really been released in a big way. And we have shared some of our patterns that we're seeing just to understand sort of where we are and how we can support one another as we're looking at student progress, proficiency, and levels of support. And we'll still be using our benchmark indicators because those can be compared and looked at over time. This is an interesting chart that really shows you the impact on student learning and kind of the large-scale vantage point of what our students have experienced over the last few years, the impact on learning because of COVID and the effects of that. And so you can see that I have a child in 7th grade. His last normal year with uninterrupted learning was a 4th grade year. So naturally, there are some things that, and some impact that will have on students. Key areas of impact, of course, are academic impact, but all of those items beneath academic impact also impact academics, which includes social impact, emotional, behavioral, students' ability to perform executive functioning tasks, and then finally student engagement. So these are all things we're looking at, and they all have an impact on instruction and academics. In language arts, you can see this chart is arranged by grade level, and then there are 3 indicators from less support, some support, strong support. We're focusing a lot of our attention on the area of strong support. We know there are students, again, there's not an area that says at benchmark or proficient, and we know some students were proficient last year and met the standards and are performing strong and doing a great job. That's observable, and that's also being demonstrated in our internal data that we're collecting. So we look at those numbers, and we can see that there are small percentages of students who need strong support. There's been nothing that's really overwhelmingly shocking when we've looked at this data so far. It's a data point, and we look at multiple measures when we're making decisions about curriculum, programming, and students, but it certainly gave us some insight on where our students are. These are our Start Strong results for math. Again, it's organized in a similar fashion, broken down by percentages. The majority of our students, just like in ELA, fall in needing some support or less support, which again, we see also in other ways. And then in the area of strong support, we can see that the percentages vary pretty significantly from grade to grade. One of the trends across the state is that math is the area because math is a building block, and so content grows and builds on there's new content, but then it's grounded in prerequisite skills. And so across the board, this is an area that's showing students' needs are greater or greatest in the area of math instruction. In our science results, they're tested in 3 grade levels. And once again, it's a similar chart. So again, to make sense of this, which was hard to process sometimes, but a 6th grade student took this assessment, and it was a 6th grade science assessment, but that assessment was built on priority standards from 5th grade. So normally, like this year, our 5th grade students will take that that science assessment. And so, but this year, because we were looking at last year's standards, these science grade levels were adjusted to make sure we were looking at our data from last year. We also break Start Strong results down into subgroups. So we looked at language arts proficiency overall. We looked at our entire student population and then various subgroups. I think one of the things that has happened over the last few years since we've been dealing with COVID and the interrupted learning from COVID is that we are talking a lot about equity and access. So I'll speak to that a little bit at the end, but you can see that the various subgroups, their performance ranges quite in a big way. There's a large range between students who were able to learn under those conditions and students who really struggled quite seriously. These are our Start Strong subgroups for math. They show similar trends. So subgroups that were lower performing in ELA are also lower performing in math. Their students typically in these subgroups, the ones that struggled a little bit more than others are typically students that need more support. And I think that districts across the state, districts across the world, we've been in collaboration and we tried a lot of different things to make sure we were thinking in an innovative way to meet the needs of students when we were challenged and we didn't have the resources that we normally did. And we'll continue to problem solve in that way to make sure that we can help accelerate learning for all student populations. These are our Start Strong results for our science subgroups. If there's not data there, that means that that particular tested subgroup doesn't have the number of students to report on. So that's why you have a blank row. I believe it's in the ELL population. So to conclude, what do we do with this information? Well, a few things. Number one, it's one measure, and we're really trying to make sense of like what this measure can tell us. And one of the, I guess, our strengths is that it hasn't told us anything that we didn't already know. So that's positive. That shows us that internally we have some great tools and resources to be able to keep our pulse on student learning within our own district. We have universal screeners, of course we have strong curriculum, and we have teachers who are extremely observant and reporting out on student progress and proficiency to give us feedback on what the needs of the children look like. When we look at that internal data, the exciting news is that we actually don't see drastic differences. We do see proficiency overall is a little bit lower in some areas, but we don't see gaps that are strikingly concerning that kind of bring us back to the baseline and having to altogether recreate the wheel. We also have district initiatives and performance goals that we had to set early on this year. There are 2 of them. One focuses on differentiated instruction, and that's because the learning gap is greater than it's ever been. So our students who struggled more during this time, and our students who did well continue to do well. And so now in classrooms, we have such a variety of learning needs that starting with our teachers in the classroom, it's important to make sure that they have the training and the tools that they need to be able to meet the diverse, probably the extremely diverse needs of the students that we have, and that's not just academically. And so we also have a social emotional goal, which is something that's been important for a really long time, but I think that the emphasis and the spotlight on social emotional learning is more important now than ever before because it's a dire need that's come out of these circumstances that we've all been a part of. I think sometimes when we use that word social emotional learning, it can sound fluffy. Some people feel it's dismissive, but LinkedIn's top 5 skills for future employers have emotional intelligence and collaboration as 2 of their top 5 skills for future employers. Emotional intelligence has always been important. You can teach, support, and train emotional IQ, and now we need that support more than we ever have before. So when we look at our system, we're looking at the academics and the instructional supports that are available, and we're trying to make sure that we are creating emotional and social opportunities for students to respond to the impact that we see. Lastly, that is like so far away. I don't know that I can, and I don't want to read it to you, but I'm going to be honest with my eyesight right now. There are 4 key principles. Under those principles, and those 4 principles are part of the state's learning acceleration plan. So we're using the learning acceleration plan that's grounded in evidence-based practices to really try to understand and be supported in determining what our students need and how we can look at learning at this point in time. So the first principle is grounded in, our students accessible for learning, which includes that social emotional response, that they're supported and that they're stable and that they're open to being a learner. And there are a variety of things that are being done right now and that we continue to work on to support that. That includes our aligned services, our district behaviorists. We're looking at a 3-year plan with the Culture and Climate Initiative out of St. Elizabeth, who's done a lot of great work across the state, and continuing to collaborate and receive professional development to be able to grow and learn about the needs of our students and how we can support them. The remaining 3 principles, Principle 2 focuses on equity, so how are we giving all kids what they need? And that's a constant conversation that we're having that can include anything from our extended learning programs to enhancing our RTI practices to make sure that students in every tier are supported equally. That also includes culturally responsive teaching and learning, which will be a professional development option at our next in-service. And the last 2 are grounded in curriculum and instruction. One of the things that we've learned that's important is to make sure that we don't focus too much on remediation. It's about moving forward and looking at how we accelerate learning by finding those patterns and those curricular weaknesses and those curricular gaps and building them into the work that we do moving forward. Otherwise, we'll never be able to move on and continue forward, with learning. The last thing I would just say is with regard to all of these things, collaboration is essential. We've been trying to build opportunities for that. We'll continue to do that. No one's ever been here before in education. These are new times, and it's going to take an army, it's going to take a village. So when people have ideas, the idea sharing is more important than ever before, coming up with innovative ways to address things, coming up with pilots to try something out before we implement it across the board. And so that is something we're working on internally, but I welcome your feedback, of course. We have opportunities for public forums, but you can reach out to my office at any point in time to share things that you're seeing with your own children or ideas that you might have based on experiences that you've been a part of. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you listening.
Thanks, Tara. Quick question, I was having a hard time hearing and seeing. Are you able to send that to the board? Sure. Thank you very much.
Can everybody out there in the audience hear? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Just making sure. Up next, Ms. Rossi and Mr. Benson will be presenting the SSDS and HIB presentation.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Benson, Executive Director of Personnel and Pupil Services. And part of one of my responsibilities that I will be taking on as Director of Pupil Services is taking on the HIB coordinator position. And with that, I would like to co-present with Mrs. Rossi our district's harassment, intimidation, and bullying grades review as required by Anti-Bullying Bill Rights Act. Before Tara actually gets into the data, I would like to briefly explain this process that starts out with every school's anti-bullying specialist completing a self-assessment of their assigned school. The self-assessment requires that each anti-bullying specialist document the sum of different practices that are taking place in their assigned schools as a way to inform, identify, and address areas of strength and improvement in an effort to improve school climate, culture, prevention, and intervention. Once we get into the data, you will see that the grades of our different buildings are essentially the same. This is due to the collaboration that our building anti-bullying specialists continue to practice day in and day out to work in aligning and utilizing best practices across all of our schools. The grade report that Tara will present are all raw scores that we will look to have approved tonight by the Board of Education and then sent to the New Jersey Department of Education for an official grade report. Once the final grade report is provided by the New Jersey Department of Education, we will share and post that official grade report on our district website as required by the New Jersey Department of Education.
Okay, so there are 8 key indicators, and underneath each indicator, there are there are 8 elements, I'm sorry, and then there are several indicators underneath each element. And so basically, it's a rubric that the anti-bullying specialists, which are basically our district guidance counselors, they work together as a team, and a lot of their work actually is done as a team in terms of the feedback they're able to provide, the training they undergo, and the way that they run their programs. So this was also completed as a team. It's a rubric that's filled out, and there's a self-assessment summary, so that will also be posted on the website. So it just shows you what kind of things that they need to respond to, and it's basically ensuring that they're following and carrying out the anti-bullying Bill of Rights. And underneath that, they have to collect artifacts, evidence, and documentation in case they're ever questioned or in case they need that to just verify our score. So in all categories, we received all of the points, so a full score, except for the category that deals with trainings. And so one of the challenges there is that there's a lot of training that our staff needs to undergo. So specifically, one of the elements that caused us to lose a point in that area is that we each also have school safety and climate teams. And so the school safety and climate teams need intensive training each year. That's an area we think we can improve upon. Obviously, one of the reasons for the struggle with that when working with the anti-bullying specialists is that we're all competing for training. So between sub-coverage and professional development days, there's professional development and training that we're constantly looking at for a variety of different reasons. So that also will be an area of focus to make sure that everyone has highly effective and updated training in all areas. So for 21-22, for this school year, there have been 2 areas of focus. So the first is underneath our HIB program approaches and initiatives. So we have found some patterns, and we'll continue to look for those and take preventative actions towards those patterns. The first is that when these issues occur, oftentimes it's during less structured times. So recess at the elementary level, the school bus has been a hot topic, and so we've done some work there, trying to find preventative measures, and then also in the lunchroom. And in our upper grade levels, we're finding that the trends show that it's technology-based usage where there are things being posted, photos, language, whatever it might be, where that's hosting and enabling some of that behavior to take place. So we're also looking at different levels of support for students, training and information to provide to not only staff but also our students. The second area of focus is under instruction and training programs. So this is something that we are meeting and we've done a lot with. Over the summer, the administration received up-to-date training. We recently had an additional training session for the specialists on January 5th, and we'll continue to look for specific supports for the school safety and climate team so that they feel empowered to build responsive, preventative supports in place. And that includes our work that we are working to sort of flesh out with the School Culture and Climate Initiative from St. Elizabeth. So I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but we're looking forward to developing school-based teams to identify specific building needs and then also, of course, supported at a district level. So that is our self-assessment, and I would just like to ask and request a motion to approve the submission of this data so that we could submit it to the state for our official grade report.
I would like to make a motion to approve the HIB self-assessment. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
We have any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Bragg?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris? Yes. Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Flesch?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next, I'm going to give an update on our strategic plan. All right, we're going to give an update quick on our strategic plan. We'll start off with the progress that's been made since our last presentation. MJO Enterprises, who was our consultant, delivered our Phase 1 deliverables on time on November 30th. The deliverables have been reviewed by the Strategic Planning Committee, and the takeaways have been discussed and finalized with MJO, with our consultant, and that was done last Friday. Broad-based goals have been identified and will be discussed and voted on at tonight's meeting. This slide gives us an overview of the data that MJO Enterprises has reviewed as part of our project. There was a lot of data review done, as you can see in this slide, going through our district data book, which contains 5 years of historical data, the data that was collected from our parent, teacher, administrator, and student surveys, the data that was collected from the public forum, the demographic study, and the data collected from their building visits. So there was a lot of data collected and analyzed during this process. More on their data analysis. You can see on the slide that we're going to be using trending data over the last 5 years, and that's going to be using district, county, state, and district factor group benchmarks as a baseline. So they have those 5 years of data that they poured through, and we'll be using that as our baseline moving forward. So updated data from our current year will be used as a comparison moving forward. Reporting on the demographic data that has been obtained by third-party consultants has also been completed, and we'll be reporting on enrollment forecasts. The Vision 2025 plan. So this was a plan that was put into place in, I believe it was 2019, that was set to go through 2025. That plan was a very generalized and broad-based plan that provided the district with good qualitative data. It was not based on any specific data analysis that was specific to our district. Areas of focus in that plan, they did not present data-driven areas to improve that were, again, specific to our district. But by combining the qualitative nature of the Vision 2025 plan with a quantitative-based strategic plan that we just went through is going to give us the necessary foundation to develop clear, broad-based goals and then more detailed district objectives that are going to be necessary to accomplish those goals. So our broad-based goals. The Strategic Planning Committee worked with our consultant, MJO Enterprises, to develop 3 broad-based goals. And these are to improve student achievement, improve communication and perception, and improve finance and operations. There are so many goals as we look at an entire district that could be set. And going through this process with MJO really gave us an opportunity to narrow those down into 3 applicable goals. District objectives. Mr. Beck and Ms. Rossi will work with district teams and designated school-based teams from each building to develop detailed district objectives based on the synthesis and key initiatives, such as the strategic plan, our Vision 2025, and our Sparta core values. These objectives will be presented by Mr. Beck and Ms. Rossi to the Board of Education and the public once they're developed. This structure again, which is one of the more important pieces of the slide, will put the future of our district in the hands of the educators, with students' voices and all stakeholders. The first start of our conclusions pages, the state of our districts is very good. There is much work that still needs to be done to make the Sparta school districts exceptional across all facets of our educational landscape. Detailed objectives will be specific, actionable, and be made public. Focus is essential. Developing clear goals and objectives that are visible to our educators, students, administrators, and community to see, and providing consistent progress updates is an important piece of the district's success. Collaboration and commitment among all stakeholders is only going to enhance our district efforts. A school system is the hub of our community, and will play a vital role in working together to achieve student success. Patience is key. Positive change takes time. Our district is working very hard to move forward in a way that is positive for all of our stakeholders, our students, educators, and community. Special care and attention will be given to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you saw in Ms. Rossi's presentation, which gave great information on kind of where we stand today in regards to COVID, it touched every aspect of the district. Education, as we know it, has changed, and the objectives moving forward will be sensitive to the new needs of our learning community. Can we switch over to the progress chart, please? So this might be a little hard to see on that screen, but we've developed a chart that's going to show our progress moving forward. And this chart will be presented at every board meeting with updates. It's a working document, so there will obviously be changes every time we meet, but you will be able to see at every meeting the progress that we're making in creating goals, implementing goals, and building teams, etc. There's a lot of detail in this, and I can't necessarily scroll down from here, but there are pages of information on here with dates, so we'll be able to see the progress as we move forward. Thank you. Moving on to the student representatives report. Unfortunately, our student representatives could not be here tonight, but they did give some information to Mr. Beck to pass on. Mr. Beck?
Yes, actually, Ms. DeLucia, thank you for passing on information on behalf of the Student Council. She said, students are glad to be back in person. The officers, senators, and advisors are meeting this Tuesday to discuss upcoming events and fundraisers, and an officer will be at the February 17th meeting to provide the board with a report.
Thank you. Moving on to section 7, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion? Is that you, Neve?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Second. Kurt, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Bragg,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Grano,
Yes.
Mr. Morris. Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Pleshy.
Yes. Moving on to section 8, the superintendent's report. Mr. Beck?
Thank you. I just want to start the superintendent report because I didn't take the opportunity during our reorganization meeting to congratulate the board members. I would like to congratulate Mr. Paleshi, Ms. Sealander, and Dr. Serrano on their reelection. I would like to congratulate and welcome Ms. Collier to the board. I would like to congratulate Mr. Paleshi and Ms. Grano on their officer positions, and I look forward to continuing to work with the entire board as we continue to move our district forward. Next, I would like to thank all of our parents and school community for their flexibility and understanding as we navigated our pivot to remote instruction and then back to in-person learning. A special thank you to our teachers, staff, and administration for all of their hard work throughout the school year and especially over the past few weeks. This seamlessly never-ending pandemic has presented constant changes to protocols and statistics throughout it, our staff has been able to overcome any and all challenges and continue to work in the best interest of our students. Moving on to an athletic update, our winter sports are underway. It's still early in the season, but we do have a couple of acknowledgments and achievements. The high school girls ski team took second place out of 13 teams in their first slalom race of the season. Congratulations to the Sparta boys basketball team who won the Route 206 holiday tournament. And a huge congratulations to, this actually occurred last night, congratulations to junior girls basketball player Bryn McCurry, who reached a major milestone last evening where she scored her 1,000th career point. 1,000 career points is a major milestone for any basketball player, but to achieve this milestone in her junior year is truly remarkable. And as they pointed out last night during the broadcast, not only did she achieve it during her junior year, but that's after missing, they said, approximated 15 games last season that she did not play. So congratulations, Bryn. And when I say she did not play, and that we lost due to COVID, I'm sorry. And lastly, I would like to congratulate and acknowledge William Brennan, teacher of Russian and history at Sparta High School. He published an article in a historical journal called The Saber and the Scroll. The Saber and the Scroll is a quarterly journal that publishes submissions from independent scholars, graduate and undergraduate students, as well as alumni and professors from academic institutions. This peer-reviewed journal focuses on military history as well as general historical topics. Mr. Brennan's publication focused on the Armenian genocide that took place between 1877 and 1915, and this is the second time that Mr. Brennan has been published in the Saber and the Scroll. His first publication was in 2020, and that one was focused on the Holocaust. So thank you and congratulations, Mr. Brennan. And that is my superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Board President's report. I don't have a specific report. I do want to address, I know last week, or 2 weeks ago now, we did have some audio issues at the meeting, and we do apologize for that. They have been resolved, and we are starting to test the sound prior to each meeting now to ensure that that doesn't happen again. So we do appreciate your patience with that. As we do move on through the rest of the meeting, just a general comment regarding committees. We do go through a lot of this information quickly during board meetings, but I do want you all to understand that there is a lot of time that is spent prior to these meetings in discussing the various aspects of each committee: personnel policy, finance, curriculum, et cetera, strategic plan. And there's a lot of spirited discussion that does go on. So I just want to thank my fellow board members for their time and dedication in doing that, and do, hope that, know that you don't see it, but the time is being put in, and we do appreciate that, so thank you. Moving on to section 10, Oprah requests. Those are all in the agenda. Section 11, HIB report. Do I have a motion? Motion. Thank you, Kurt. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Bragg,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Brano,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen, Mr. Flesch.
Yes. Okay, section 13, delegate liaison reports. Do we have any reports? Ms. Bragg?
I'd like to report out to my colleagues on the town council delegate position. Mr. Morris and Mr. Paleshi, Mr. Beck, and I met with the town council liaisons this morning, and the focus of the phone call was to discuss implementing pathway lighting on the path between Station Park and the high school. That's a unique situation. It's something we have been working on for a long time, and I'm really glad to see it, the conversation continuing. The uniqueness of it is that that path is primarily used because we hold events and there's overflow parking that goes into Station Park, but we don't own that property, so we are not in a position to put up the lighting that we would like to see on that property ourselves. It's owned by the township, so really requires collaboration from the town. And so we just started those conversations this morning. And we'll keep you posted. We're going to meet again next month, and we'll provide an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have one update for curriculum. And Tara, correct me if the information's wrong, but I know the past few years the PTOs have been eager to get Diane Grossman from Mallory's Army to come and speak to the district. And now that's actually going to happen, not through the PTOs, but the district signing is taking care of it. And there's going to be a parent academy in February with her, so more information will be coming out. So keep an eye on that.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have for finance, which really Ron kind of touched on with the ESIP program, the Energy Savings Improvement Plan. We really spoke mostly about that and a technology audit that we are exploring, that Ron is going to explore some folks to help us with that. I couldn't really hear Ron's presentation either, so it must be me. But my biggest takeaway from the ESIP program is really that, you know, for example, and you might have said this already, that, you know, we're saving half of our electric bill. Half of the electric bill that we pay at Sparta High School will go away with the installation of these solar panels. With all of the new boilers that we're installing, converting from oil to gas, you know, we're going to be cutting our heating costs in half. So by keeping our energy budget flat, you know, not making any changes to where it is now, we will be able to pay for these $8 million in upgrades without affecting the taxpayers, which I think I just repeated what you already said. So that's really what we spent the focus of our meeting talking about, and the technology audit and what that would look like.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I do have something else. The Diversity Council. So unfortunately, I was sad not to be at yesterday's meeting. Unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes. But Mr. Kircher was nice enough to give me an update, so I just wanted to report out on the work that they're doing. The subcommittees met. The Racial Equity Group has decided to continue their book club, and they're looking to expand, you know, get more people in the community involved. So anybody out there who's interested, go to our website and check that out. The Neurodiversity and Disability Subcommittee is also moving forward with repainting the handicapped spots in the district with the accessibility logo, which is exciting. The LGBTQ awareness group started work on an inaugural Pride Month event, which will take place in June. And another really cool thing is that, you know, Sparta educators and Diversity Council members are really benefiting from the partnership that we have with the Keene University. So last night, 20 of our teachers and administrators started their spring semester, and they're going to earn a certificate in teaching the Holocaust and prejudice reduction. And these college courses and credits are provided tuition free through this program and our membership in Keene's Diversity Council. So that's an awesome thing for our staff to participate in. And lastly, the Diversity Council has helped the high school students coordinate some contributions for Black History Month celebrations, and 16 students have created instructional content that will be used by students at the Helen Morgan School. So these videos are going to, you know, invite the students to reflect on the personal impact of influential Black leaders and inspirational quotes, and that will be published in the month of February. So there's a lot of really good, important, and exciting work going on with the Diversity Council.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to section 14, public comment number 1, which is for action items only. Action items are items on the agenda that the board actually votes on during the meeting. Please, as you come up, please state your name and your town of residence, and you will receive 3 minutes to speak. There will be a timer kept up here, and you will be notified when you have 1 minute left on your time. Okay, we have anybody for public comment number 1?
Hi there.
How are you?
Jen Hamilton, 37 Holland Circle. I had a question, and I apologize if you're not taking action on this, but I was unsure based on the agenda, so I'm going to throw it out there, and if you want me to come back later, I'll ask it then. I had a question about the MJO data and the plan moving forward that you talked about, and I think you said you were voting on the new initiatives tonight. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, we'll be doing that during new business. During the new business section, we'll be voting on that.
So can I talk about it now?
Yes.
I just wanted to check in. I really appreciate how much information you've provided to us. Particularly, I don't think I ever spoke with you directly, but at a few meetings ago, you told us the purpose of MJO and how they came in and they were looking at more quantitative data as opposed to just kind of our wish list of what we would like our community to look like in a number of years. So I found that really helpful, so thank you for that. But I was wondering if we are actually going to get to see the results of that review, because it sounds like there was a list, and I love this plan with the timeline of being able to see kind of how you guys progress. But I also think it would be really informative for the community to see the results of that data analysis that MJO completed, to have a better sense of what it is we're looking at as a district and what the district needs actually are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frank Sanchez, 122 Sparta Road.
And Mr. Sanchez?
How you doing? Congratulations, Laura, my neighbor. I'm here to just talk about the presentations that were given today, and I think you're voting on the HIB one, right? That's a motion you guys did already.
Correct.
So I looked at the website, and I saw the agenda, but no presentations. I think it's kind of crazy that we don't have the presentations when you make them. I think at one point you even said you couldn't see it. And someone actually mentioned on the board that they didn't even have it. So can you post them, right? And you even said, I think at one point, we're gonna be seeing them, every meeting. I can't see it. So it would be awesome if you could post them every meeting. I think that would make sense. And the HIB one, I thank you for the presentation. The training was for teachers. I saw there was training for administrators. I would hope there's training for board members. I want to thank board member Sorensen and Morris, who stood up, listened to the parents of a child who was, I think, alleged to be a HIB perpetrator, and we all know that it wasn't the case. And unfortunately, Bragg, McGovern, and Pileshi really should get the training as well. That's my only comment.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else for public comment number 1? Okay, moving on to personnel and policy, section 15. First, portions 15.1 to 1522. Do I have a motion? Who was that? I'm sorry, was that you, Need?
It was me.
Thank you.
Then Kurt.
Kurt with a second, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Bragg?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris? Yes. Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Flesch?
Yes. Okay, moving on to section 16.
Craig, real quick, did you say, when you said personnel, you said 15, 1 and 2? Is that what you said?
15.1 to 15.22, 22.
Oh, okay, I thought you said.
Yep, sorry. Okay, moving on to section 16, curriculum, for areas 16.1 to 16.8. Do I have a motion? Kurt, thank you. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion?
I just
Roll.
wanted to say I was glad to see a field trip back that's very beloved by our first grade team. So I thank our teachers for requesting the chaperones. Proud to see it back.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mr. Smith?
Gregg?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Flesch?
Yes. Moving on to section 17, finance, areas 17.1 to 17.12. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Who was that? Krista?
Yes.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Neve, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith?
Gregg?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Flesch?
Yes. Okay, moving on to section 18, operations, for areas 18.1 to 18.2. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Mr.
Ms.
Smith?
Bragg?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Flesch?
Yes. Moving on to section 19, old business. Okay. Section 20, new business. I would like to make a motion to open nominations
Chris-
for
Oh.
the vacated seat by Mr. McGovern. Do I have a nomination?
Yeah, Mr. President, could I just refresh everybody's memory as to what the process is here, just so that everybody's familiar with what we're about to do. So we're about to fill a vacancy that was left by Mr. McGovern. Just for the benefit of the public, the process is that the board president calls for nominations. Anybody's welcome to make a nomination with a second. We will then close the nominations, and per our policy, we vote on the candidates in the order in which they're nominated. The first candidate to get 5 votes will be the successful candidate for the open slate. So that's the process we're going to follow. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, now, can I have a motion to open nominations, please?
Motion.
Krista, thank you. Second?
Second.
Neve, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Do I have any nominations for the open board seat vacated by Mr. McGovern?
I'd like to nominate Patrick McKernan.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Are there any other
I'd
nominations?
like to nominate Holly O'Keefe. I just wanted to say that I think what she brings to the table with her mental health background is something different that we could use at our board table. I think she would bring a fresh perspective, especially with our focus on social emotional learning right now.
Thank
I
you.
nominate Holly O'Keefe.
Do I have a second? Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close nominations.
Motion.
Thank you, Neve. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. All in favor to close the nominations?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? would like to make a motion to appoint Patrick McKernan for the seat vacated by Mr. McGovern. And that seat will serve until December of 2023.
Actually, the person will serve until the organization meeting in January of '23. Just to correct that. Yep, no problem. Thank you. And the remainder of the term will be on the ballot in November, so anybody's welcome to run for the remainder of Mr. McGovern's term, which I think would be 1 year at that point. Am I correct? Yes. Okay.
Great. Congratulations, Mr. McKernan.
No. We have to
Sorry.
do the. We have to do the. We have to
We gotta
do the
vote.
Sorry, I'm still learning.
So did that get a second? I've lost track. Did we get a second
I
on
think we
that?
did get a second. Vanessa gave a
Vanessa
second.
gave a
All right,
Yes.
discussion.
Discussion now?
I just want to encourage anyone who, wants to be on this board, don't give up. And, like Holly, I think you would be a great asset to the board, and I think you should run in the fall.
I'd just like to say Patrick, when we were speaking with him, was very knowledgeable on the district and was able to comment and give specifics about ways that we can improve. Also, he's been very involved within the community, both from a business point of view, but also with students and taking the time to coach them as well.
Any other comments? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Bragg,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Grano,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Flesch.
Yes. Now I can say congratulations to Mr. McKernan. So swearing in will probably be at our next board meeting, which is. Pull it up here. 24th, this February 24th. Okay. I would like to make a motion to adopt and vote on the new board goals that were given during the strategic plan presentation. And again, those board goals are to improve student achievement, to improve communication and perception, and to improve finance and operations. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion?
Thank you, Kim. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Krista. Discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith?
Ms. Bragg,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Grano,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Ms. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Flesch.
Yes. Is there any other new business?
I haven't. Mr. Beck, I would like to request a thorough review of our locker room protocols with our athletic teams, for both genders, boys and girls. And if this could be kicked over to the operations committee, and you report out to the operations committee, I would appreciate that. And I just want to be clear that this is not as a result of any incident that I've heard of in Sparta, but I would like to be proactive and just have you take a look at and report to the board what the protocols are for the athletic teams and our locker rooms. Thank you.
Absolutely. I know there's measures in place, but I'll review with the admin team and I'll report back.
Thank you very much.
Any other new business? Okay. Before we move on to public comment number 2, we do have a statement regarding negotiations that Ms. Sorensen will be reading. Go ahead, Krista.
Given the misinformation being circulated around the negotiations process, it is important that more details are shared so that the public has accurate information. At the last meeting, the SEA and the state mediator on December 9th, 2021. The total financial package requested by the SEA in the first year totaled approximately 4.12%. The board's response totaled approximately 3.38%. The board did not ask for any major contract revisions in return. During that meeting, the association specifically asked for the following, among other things. Number one, 3.2% salary increase for each year. The board offered a salary increase to the entire unit of 2.6% in the first year, 2.55%, and 2.5%. Two, a phased-in reduction of the previously negotiated long-standing class loads for middle and high school special education teachers. The board accepted this phased-in reduction. Three, an additional $40,000 for the secretary guide. The board offered an additional $30,000 for the secretary guide on top of the salary increase. Four, a $1 per hour increase for the paraprofessionals. The board agreed to this increase. Five, a yearly increase to extracurricular and coaching stipends. The board offered a one-time increase to the stipends. And six, 100 less minutes per week of negotiated contractual teaching time for elementary school teachers. Given the tremendous amount of learning loss as a result of the pandemic and after consulting with school administrators regarding the instructional and operational aspects, the board did not agree to this request. There are numerous issues and discussions that must be considered when negotiating a contract. It is a complicated process. Not every item was agreed to, nor can that be expected during any negotiation process. For example, the cost to implement just the special education teachers' class load reductions while ensuring adequate class coverage and staff compensation was determined to be approximately $350,000 per year, on top of any salary increases to the agreed base salary and other financial items. The board values the important work of our special education teachers and offered a way to make this happen in a fiscally sound manner. Unfortunately, after these offers were exchanged, neither party was willing to move further. The negotiations will now move to fact-finding. Both parties have been waiting since December 9th for a date to be established by the state. Until an agreement is reached, we are open to continued negotiations with the SEI. In the meantime, we look forward to our meeting with the state-appointed fact-finder once it is scheduled. The board is not to be blamed for the pace of the negotiations. We, like the SEA, are at the mercy of the state's schedule. The board would like to settle this contract without having to go to a referendum or having to make any staff reductions. We continue to stand by this position. There is a false narrative that has been created that the Sparta Board of Education members do not care about the teachers in our district, and this couldn't be further from the truth. Sparta Board of Education members are your neighbors. We are moms and dads with children in each of these Sparta schools, and we are taxpayers. We want nothing more than a community that is united in the best interests of our students and to have teachers and staff who feel supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Orton. We're now going to move on to public comment number 2, which will invite comments on all matters pertaining to the school district. Again, as with the first public comment, please state your name and town of residence. And each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. We will keep a countdown timer here, and you will be notified when there's 1 minute left to speak. Thank you. Can I have the first speaker, please?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Sanchez, and I live at 122 Summit Road in Sparta.
Hi, Ms. Sanchez.
Ms. Sorensen, I appreciate your statement, but I wish we'd had that before we came here so we could have known that information. But like, honestly, it doesn't really make all that much of a difference, and makes no difference in what I'm gonna say, so I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. When a school district struggles to settle their contract year after year after year, it hurts the whole district's reputation, and they become known as an undesirable place to work. And it makes it difficult to attract and retain talented teachers. Back in November, this school board put out an open letter to the public stating that the SEA approach is we want everything and more, and that the teachers want to work less for more pay. That was the narrative they put out to the public in November. That set the tone for future negotiations. And this very specific details, you know, we're mostly not privy to, and we mostly don't understand as parents. But that language was insulting and degrading of the whole process. The board statement went on to say, we most certainly respect and value the teachers and staff members who work in Sparta and who educate and guide our students every day. Any statement or belief to the contrary is simply false. Okay. If you say so, like, it doesn't feel that way. And obviously compensating people for their work costs money. There's obviously going to be a cost. But my question is, how exactly would granting their requests be detrimental to our children's education? And this is not a rhetorical question. Like, I would really like an answer, because we are incredibly lucky to have the staff we currently have. And let's not drive them away. In our experience here as a family in this district, we have had like some stellar, like, inspirational change your life teachers, and we have had like tried and true dedicated professionals, and we've had some like out of the box, really creative teachers. So many different, wonderful in their own way teachers, and there's not a single one of them that I would say is trying to work less and get more. Like, that narrative feels like nonsense to me, and I think the board needs to find a way to settle this contract and do right by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Sanchez.
Hi, Caitlin Gagnon, Summit Road, Sparta.
Hi, Ms. Gagnon.
Hi, thank you. Two things. I'd like to reiterate my neighbor Frank's sentiments in congratulating Lauren, also my neighbor, and reiterating that training for the HIB. We need to know what qualifies as an actual HIB, a viable HIB, like racism that's going on in our schools, versus something that's completely speculative and frankly ridiculous. As I'm sure you've already noticed, a lot of us are wearing black tonight to demonstrate our solidarity with the SEA and every teacher, paraprofessional, and school staff member in our district. I find it concerning that the ongoing narrative conveyed by the board, at least by some of the members present, some who have since resigned, seems to be that the SEA's requests are unreasonable and far worse, that our educational staff members wish to, quote, work less and get paid more. After the last 2 years, after every curveball these staff members have been thrown, and facing the now daunting challenge of getting our Sparta student body back up to speed, I think it's fair to consider the opposite to be true. It seems the board is asking our staff to work more and get paid less. And when I say less, I don't mean less than what they're receiving to date. I mean less than the county average increase, less than an I-district average increase, less than the solely inflation or cost of living based average increase, less than what they deserve. If our elementary staff is asking for 10 more minutes each day to plan and prepare our children during an ongoing pandemic, why deny them? If our special education staff is asking for the same overload stipends as the general education staff, why deny them? If the initial offer was higher than you thought fair in the initial process of negotiating, why insult our staff with an initial offer or counteroffer of 1.5, knowing full well that the district's annual budget can accommodate well beyond this number? If you can find the means to invest in energy savings projects, the majority of which sound wonderful, by the way, if you can invest in our board through strategic planning, if you can invest in our district's driving fleet, why can't we find ways to invest in the very reason our district is so exceptional?
1 minute.
During tonight's Start Strong presentation, it was mentioned that after analyzing the data, there doesn't seem to be, quote, drastic differences or gaps that are strikingly concerning among the student body post-pandemic onset. What great news! Why then do you mention catastrophic learning losses as a means of justifying your unwillingness to negotiate? The board has requested that ongoing negotiations be held in good faith. I'm inclined to agree. Good faith should be the standard, whether we're considering negotiations or any other board operation. I encourage you to repair the pessimistic perception of our board, mentioned tonight as one of your goals, and to rebuild a trust between you all and our community. I also encourage you to incentivize qualified potential new hires to join this district, and more importantly, to retain the incredible staff we're lucky to still have. You can accomplish all of that by settling the contract. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gagnon.
Hello, my name is Simonetta Jean. I live at 523 East Shore Trail.
Good
Actually
evening.
graduated from Sparta High School in 1983. And if it wasn't for those teachers, my experience at Sparta High School would have not been so phenomenal. I respect and support our teachers. Now, I would like the Board of Education members to do the same. Instead of spreading lies disguised as propaganda in an open letter to the public that states the teachers' approach is, we want everything and more. What an insult to suggest that our teachers are selfish and greedy. You are elected by the parents to do what is best for the children. And what is best for the children is for the Board of Education members to respect and support teachers during contract negotiations. Teachers deserve a competitive and equitable contract. They deserve it now, especially when you bring up all these presentations. None of those matter unless you have teachers. And then you do this quick voting. You go for a football coach over someone that could have given you innovative ideas to actually make our children emotionally competitive.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, Dr. Jennifer Rogoff, 1 Millstone Court, Sparta.
Hey, Dr. Rogoff.
Total change of topic. Lots of people had a lot of good things to say ahead of me, but I'm changing the topic for the evening. And that's in hearing you say that our student representatives weren't able to be here this evening, but that they're going to be meeting prior to the next meeting to discuss some fundraisers and future events. And I kind of want to touch base on prom a smidge this evening. And I know it may seem a little bit early that that's not until June, but that is a really big event in the eyes of our seniors. And as a parent of 2 seniors who haven't had a normal day at school since maybe their sophomore year, I just kind of like to talk to Mr. Beck and say, when you're planning those events, I would love to see as normal an event as possible. I'm not really sure what that looks like, and I understand the need for caution and care when planning an event like that. You know, I work in a school district myself. My husband is a respiratory therapist. So we certainly understand, but as normal an event as possible. I know my daughter's not the only one who happens to be dating a member of our community who doesn't attend Sparta High School. For the past year and a half, this young man, he eats at the same restaurants we do, shops at the same stores we do, same post office, and spends some time at my house each day. But he doesn't attend Sparta High School, and the thought that he might not be able to attend is something rather earth-shattering to my daughter. And so that's why I'm standing here this evening. And the same thing goes looking towards graduation. As normal a graduation as we can possibly see. You know, her older brother graduated during the pandemic, and we had a graduation out on the field, but half of his friends were in the other half of the alphabet. So they were there at a different time with their families, and, you know, we distantly waved on FaceTime, and it's just not the same. So I would just like you to consider, and as we move forward in planning those events for the spring, that we really look to try and, you know, have those milestone events for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Rogoff.
Hi, my name is Paige Giovanni. I'm a student.
How you doing today?
Good, you?
Good, thank you.
I'm speaking once again on behalf of the suspension of Kate Brennan after some new changes in my women's studies classroom because I have a lot of questions. According to assumptions and the reasoning given to the students in regard to Kate Brennan's suspension, the book, also known as the syllabus for the class that Brennan made herself, was targeted as something that seemed to be inappropriate to use and has since been banned, including even the mention of it in my women's studies class, until now. I guess this book isn't so scary to you after all, seeing as my 4th English teacher in 5 months told us that as of Monday, not only are we allowed to use the material in the book, but also once again bring the book back into the classroom. So I ask you, why? Was it the material or how the book was made that was banned, or was it the fact that specifically Brennan was the one making the material? If the book was the reasoning given to the students before, why is it no longer the reasoning for the suspension now? We are yet to receive a coherent reason. Is there even one at all? I understand that you cannot speak for other people and these reasonings may not be disclosed, but months have passed and the board is yet to be transparent with students regarding this issue, which is directly affecting my classes and my education as a senior, and I am honestly appalled. Your actions still have lasting weight on every single student who's had the opportunity for personal and academic growth having Brennan as their teacher. Though you just said that you care about the students and faculty, your actions have shown collective dismissal of the students and faculty you're supposed to represent as members of the board. If you're going to keep acting on personal agendas and strip this district of one of its greatest teachers, the least you can do is pretend to be acting in the district's best interests, which starts with keeping your story straight. While I'm up here, approve the teachers' aides and secretaries' contracts. The fight's been going on for 6 months too long.
Thank you for your comments, Paige. That's fine, yes. Yep, absolutely, that's fine.
Hi, Jennifer Grant at 22 Longview Road.
Hi, Ms. Grant.
Hi. I wanted to welcome you, Mr. Pileshi. Congratulations, Lauren.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being the board president. Actually, one of my questions was about board goals. I was going to ask if that was a plan for this year, if you were going to create them. I think it said in the presentation that the Strategic Planning Committee collaborated with MJO on board goals. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And Mr. Beck and Ms. Rossi
Okay,
were also
great.
involved in that. They were part of that committee
Okay.
as well.
I was curious about that and thinking of asking you about it before the meeting tonight, because in the past, usually it's done in public with the full board, and kind of there's discussion you can hear and stuff like that. I'm glad that there are board goals established, because as the member of the public, I feel like what we have to go on is what we see at the meetings and the information that's put out there. And board goals help kind of inform what the board's priorities are, right? Everything else we have to go on is the decisions you make, the actions you choose to take, things that you vote on, and your discussion at the table. And to be honest, the past couple of years, there hasn't been much discussion at the table. And I'm hoping that as the new board president, that's something that you would hopefully foster. You have an opportunity to kind of create a new culture and a new climate around how board members interact. And my question for you, I have a question for you and I have a question for Mr. Beck, is with the status of the board retreat, is that something that you are going to pursue, or is that something that's been already planned? And
I'm sorry, the board retreat?
A board retreat, if
Okay.
there is one in the works, or if you were considering an important.
Yeah, and we will, if I don't, I probably won't respond now, but we will respond at the end of the meeting, but I am writing it down.
Oh, okay, we're doing that, okay. My other question is for Mr. Beck. So speaking to priorities and the information that's put out and the things that we see and the things that we see you all fast track and vote on, and that speaks to us what the priorities are.
One minute.
Okay. One of those things that I would like an update on that kind of speaks to the priorities of the district is the handicap accessibility at Helen Morgan. So maybe you're not going to provide an update right now, but if you could add that to your list of questions. It was brought up almost a year ago now, and at that time, supposedly made a priority to happen by September, and that fell apart because I think the whole situation was very mismanaged, which speaks to how big of a priority it is. So I'm hoping that now, when you do give the update, if you could provide the status of it and when it could potentially, hopefully be done, because we lost another year of people in wheelchairs able to use another full building in our school district.
Yeah, and I'm not going to I'll respond after public comment. I just want to clarify, are you talking about the indoor access?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, and my name is Sue Soy. I am the president of the Sparta Education Association. I live at 81 Springbrook Trail.
Good evening, Sue.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just saying good evening.
Good evening. But congratulations on your election as the president. Welcome,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Collier. I don't have a lot to say this evening. You all have heard me speak many times in regard to our contract negotiation. I'd like to thank the parents that were here this evening that spoke in support of the SEA. And I would also like to say that while I appreciate your update, Mrs. Sorensen, there were absolutely several misstatements of fact in the way that you had presented some of the information this evening. I'm not going to go into detail, but there were several misinformation, much misinformation of the facts there. I'm not going to go on about the stress and anxiety that our staff has been under, especially in the last few weeks with our pivoting from in-person to virtual instruction. Mr. Beck, we appreciate your thanks for that and your guidance, but your staff is weary, and we're under a lot of stress and anxiety. And while I know that there's not much that you as a board can do about pandemic conditions, there is one thing that you can do, and that's settle our contract. Settle it now, settle it soon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Soar.
Hi, Tammy Mongan, 10 Ginger Lane.
I'm
Sparta.
sorry, ma'am. Can you repeat your name? I'm sorry.
Tammy Mongan,
Thank
10
you, Ms.
Ginger
Mongan.
Lane, Sparta.
Thank you, Ms. Mongan.
I noticed one of the goals is to improve communication and perception. You could actually accomplish goal number 2 by settling the teachers' contracts. I personally can't change the perceptions that the public may have. Teachers have been villainized and demonized for all of time, but you actually can. What do you think the perception is of a town who can't settle a teacher's contract? Can you confirm what the county average is in terms of asking for an increase?
We respond at the end.
Okay. If that number is 3%, how are the Sparta teachers being offered below that? I can't remember exactly the numbers you said, 2.7, 2.5. It's embarrassing. Can you first confirm also that you came back with a counter offer of 1.5%? Because that's even more embarrassing. I mean, if you place a bid on eBay for something that's worth $20 and you're offered 10, they're not even going to give you the, not even work with you. So let's accomplish goal number 2. Let's be honest in our communication. If you want us, the public, to have the perception that the board is supportive of our teachers, then you need to settle their contracts. Please stop asking us to be understanding of the fact that you are community members and that your feelings need to be respected. I'm asking you to please do your jobs and change these perceptions. It's time to settle the teachers' contracts.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Mongan.
Hi, Elizabeth Sanchez, 122 Summit Road in Sparta again.
Hi, Ms. Sanchez.
For those of us who asked questions tonight, sometimes we hear that they'll be answered at the end of the meeting. Sometimes people interject and answer when they want to. Will these questions be answered? I think that when we take the time to show up here and ask the questions, in whatever format you're going to do it, it would be helpful for us to know that our questions will be addressed, either after, but fully addressed, so that we don't feel like we're wasting our time asking them. That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, Fallon Viamore, Springbrook Trail. I'm here to speak on the SCA negotiations. Mrs. Fadden, Mrs. Barbado, Mr. Richgo, Mr. Miranda, Mr. Lowry, Mr. Medina, Mr. Gerald, Ms. Willie, Mr. Runsky, Ms. Vanenchek, Mr. Marciano, Mrs. Straczynski, Mrs. DeLucia. I could keep going, but I know my time is limited. These are just a few of the incredible teachers I was incredibly lucky to have in Sparta. I graduated almost 20 years ago, but I still think about the teachers that instilled a lifelong love of learning and reading that borders on obsession. I wouldn't be the person I am without the skills and life lessons imparted by them. I stayed in this town so that my children would have the same experience. I know many Sparta alumni who've done the same. Some have even come back to teach themselves. In order for the students to continue to have access to the high-quality educators that make our district so special, we need to keep them. I fear the longer the negotiations continue, the harder it will be to retain staff and the more difficult it will be to attract the same caliber. These people go above and beyond for the students each and every day. They need to know how much their efforts are valued and appreciated. We say that it takes a little more to be a Spartan, but without these educators, we can't be Sparta. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to close public comment number 2, please? Motion. Eve, thank you. Can I have a second, please? Second. Krista, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll respond to Ms. Grana. The handicap accessibility, the indoor handicap accessibility at Helen Morgan was actually awarded to a contractor last board meeting. So we are going to begin to work with that contractor on the timing of the project. I agree that it did take too long to get to this point. We ran into a snag with the contractor we were originally working with, where he was under state contract, and as we got deeper into the project, we realized he was only under state contract to make repairs and not actually install. So we had to start the process all over. Not an excuse, just explain what happened. So that has been awarded, and we'll start working with that contractor as soon as possible. And that also includes the lift for the for the orchestra pit here. Yeah, I can provide an update at the next meeting, or Ms. Grana, you can reach out to me too via email, and I can get it between meetings too.
And Ms. Grana, to address your second question regarding the NJ SBA board retreat, we do have that on the calendar for February 26th. Okay. Lastly, just in regards to negotiations, we're not going to comment on it further tonight, but believe us when we say we do want this settled soon. So trust us that is what our goal is as well. Okay, so thank you. Moving on to for the good of the order. Do we have anything for the good of the order tonight?
I do. I was virtual last meeting, so I just want to congratulate you on becoming president.
Thank you.
And thank Kim for all of her time that she dedicated as president and all that she's taught us. Also, like Krista said, we are all moms and dads with kids in this district. And it's okay for us to all not agree and maybe not like us, and that's fine, but I think there's a time and place for that, and probably most of the time when we're walking around town and we encounter each other, we're with our kids, and I would just ask that people be mindful that we're moms and dads first, and try to separate the two things because kids are noticing how we're being treated out in public. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Craig, I would just like to add, Neve, thank you for your kind words. And because you were virtual at the reorg meeting, I did not think you could hear me. Want to thank you for all the work you did as vice president and all the support you gave, not only to me, but to this board and to this district. I behind the scenes to all the work that you did, so thank you very much. And Craig, because the audio was messed up, I just want to reiterate congratulations to you. I wish you well, and anything you need, I'm glad to help. But I'm very glad that you are in the position you're in. Thank you.
Thank you.
If the question is the reference to Ms. Brennan, we don't discuss, and nor are we going to discuss. I'm sorry? I'm answering the question. If it related to a personnel matter, which clearly it did, I'm not going to debate. The fact of the matter is we're not going to discuss Ms. Brennan or any personnel matter related to it. Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. We heard you.
Okay. Okay, we're not going to need to go into a second closed session today. No, we're not going to. I said we're not going into second closed session. So can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Motion.
Can I have Kurt? Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Neve, thank you. Discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending and for your participation. Have a good night.